Geeta Dhyana. Om. O Bhagavad Gita, by which Arjuna was illumined by Lord Krishna himself, and which was composed of 18 chapters within the Mahabharata by the ancient sage Vyasa. O Divine Mother, destroyer of rebirth, who showers the nectar of oneness upon us. O Bhagavad Gita, my affectionate mother, on thee I meditate. All the Upanishads are the cows. The milker is the cowherd boy, Krishna. Arjuna is the calf. People of purified intellect are the drinkers. The milk is the supreme nectar of the Gita. My salutations to the Lord, who is the source of supreme bliss, whose grace makes the mute eloquent and the crippled cross mountains. Hari Om Tat Sat. There you are. Okay, so from the discussion of duty, we continue and move into freedom and nature of freedom and how it is that duty and freedom are related. So we discussed this yesterday. Better is one's own duty, this is 47, though destitute of merits, than the duty of another well performed. He who does the duty ordained by his own nature incurs no sin. And you use the example of crack dealer, which has no merit as far as we can tell, correct? Yeah. Oh. Very good. And this says, though the duty is destitute of merit. And so there's always the question of why, because this seems so counter. Yes? It seems so counter. But you check in and see, why does it seem counter? You're going to find ragadvesha there. Yeah? And you'll find the judgmental nature there. Right? And when you consider that we live in a perfect world, which means, and I know this sounds crazy, but when you consider that we live in a perfect world, which means everything is here. Everything is here. Every type of thought, every type of action, everything is here. Then as soon as we step into the realm where we're saying, but this shouldn't be allowed, and this shouldn't be allowed, and this shouldn't be allowed, we're very much in the muck of it. We're very much stuck in the samsara of it, because the perfection looks like this. Having said this, we're in danger if we just stop here and refuse to serve, refuse to do what we can to benefit those that are here with us. If we just stop there, then one is incurring sin. But also to say that this person's wrong and this person's wrong and this person's wrong, one is incurring sin. Yeah, it's the discussion that we had with the Ramdas teaching a week ago, something like that's helpful. Yeah. So, okay. So continuing and then moving into freedom. One should not abandon, O Arjuna, this is 48, the duty to which one is born, though faulty, for all beginnings, or we could say all becomings, are enveloped by evil as fire is by smoke. Yeah, we'll discuss. He says it says beginnings, and I could say becoming. I just added becoming. Endeavors in order to get something or become something are enveloped by evil in the same way that fire is enveloped by smoke. Okay. we'll take the commentary. There's a very good commentary from Swami Venkatesh. And then he adds the second together, 49. He whose intellect, so what's the way out? And this is where Krishna goes now. So what's the way out? Because we always thought it was what we did. You asked the question the other day about serving the elderly. And if you have the capacity to do it, and if the opportunity is there, why not? Yeah, why not? And there are some notions about I don't want to do. It's not what I'm supposed to do, all of that stuff. But if it's what's placed in front, why not? And if the gifts are there, and there's a discussion here about everything involved in order to learn something new to do, in order to what?
Serve.
No, I mean in order to what? So you can say serve, but if I'm having to learn something new in order to do, then it's to get. Yeah. Otherwise, why? To get more money, to get more love, to get more attention, to get away, to get... In other words, any of the beginnings are related to what is it that's to be accomplished here. By an individual, which doesn't exist. So, smoke. He whose intellect is so now the way. He whose intellect is unattached everywhere, who has subdued his self, little s self, who's controlled himself, free from whom desire has fled, personal desire. He, by renunciation, attains the supreme state of freedom from action. So, and again, it's having clearly stated that action is required in order to attain the state of freedom from action. That's all through Geeta. Okay, lovely commentary from Swamiji. It says the previous injunction is reinforced. So the previous injunction was this 47, better is one's own duty, though destitute of merits, than the duty of another. He who does the duty attained by his own nature incurs no sin. So he doesn't add to the separation. The previous injunction is reinforced. The goal of Gita Yoga is detached dynamism. Do you know what dynamism is? Dynamic. So dynamic, is that withdrawn? Is that indifferent? No. Engaged, right? Engaged. Dynamic, aware of the circumstances, aware of everyone here. Aware of the room, the space, the nature, all of this, engaged. Dynamism. Yeah. But detached dynamism, what does that mean? Detached? Not desirous of something for ourselves. What am I going to get from this? Where among all of these trees is my tree? Right? Detached in that way. Aware of all of them, engaging with all of them, but not playing favorites. You play favorites in order to get something. Right? Detached in that way. So he says detached dynamism and egoless activity. It's the same. Being active, but not to fill a void. Which, to this point, we've done. Because of the feeling of being incomplete. So he says, these are possible only if one applies oneself to one's innate talents and faculties. If one discovers oneself instead of struggling to imitate someone else. Abandoning them, our innate faculties, whatever they are, abandoning them and looking for something else decreases efficiency and feeds the ego. Does that make sense?
Abandoning who?
Our natural inclinations, natural faculties, innate talents and faculties. Innate, yeah? Oh.
Trying to emulate somebody else or something?
Yeah, that's exactly what he's saying. Decreases efficiency and feeds the ego. With the exception of those who are born for unknown reasons into the quote-unquote wrong families, the vast majority of human beings find it easier to carry on the professions natural to them. It is, quote, in the blood, as we say. Hence, the carpenter's son has a great chance of shining as a skillful carpenter. Barring exceptions, if he attempts to become a singer, the carpenter's son, barring exceptions, if he attempts to become a singer, first, his natural talents are suppressed and lost to the world. Second, he has to work against too many odds, upbringing, environment, etc., and so is constantly frustrated and worsted by those who are born to sing. And third, the unnaturalness of the situation makes him vain over little successes, and the least defeat hurts his vanity deeply. Krishna tells us, and he quotes, all beginnings, all undertakings are enveloped by evil. Why are you anxious to abandon what is natural to you and struggle to achieve the unnatural? Your goal is to make your life so easy and smooth flowing that you can rise above the idea of I am the doer, so that you may rest in the supreme state of actionlessness. When you begin to do something strange and new, the desire that goads you, the effort that accompanies it, and the expectancy or fear of the consequences will conspire to keep you away from your own center, which is witness consciousness.
I can see it in some cases, but I mean, that's how we begin the yogic path also. Like we start something new, and then we begin something that is more beneficial.
So you see, there's a funny one. What yogic path is Arjuna on? Can you catch that? What yogic path is Arjuna on? Is he in an ashram doing asanas every day? Learning pranayama?
No.
No, thank you. That's why we say for most of us, unless by nature we are inclined, ashram is not the place to stay. Unless we are so inclined. Unless the nature already is inclined to being of service in an ashram. If you come to ashram for yourself, you need to leave within a year. If you come to ashram for yourself and then you discover that you're naturally inclined to serve in the ashram environment, then you stay.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, there's this idea that, people are supposed to come to ashram and stay in ashram forever or something like that. And within ashrams, we'll get environments where ashramites will actually look down on people that are in the world. It's the craziest thing. I've seen it multiple times. It's a part of our craziness. But it's the same thing we suffer from everywhere. So some will have a natural inclination to serve in ashram. If you don't, you'll be so miserable after a few months or so. Or you'll have to numb down and become very tamasic in order to put up with it. How long do you have to be involved in self-improvement before you can serve? And so that's why the discussion we've been having recently about, okay, it's time to get up and serve. It's time to get up and serve. And those that are to be here for a little while, you'll be here for a little while. I have to go out, and the rest of us, we need to be prepared to go serve, to take to take what we're gaining, whatever, or losing, and apply it.
Second one.
Yeah, it's really that, isn't it? Oh. So just like the warrior, maybe Hari is a spiritual warrior. And maybe Hari's role is to help others who come into this environment to discover how to be free of themselves. Maybe that's how Hari serves. And then life in ashram is perfect for Hari, because Hari has the natural inclinations in order to support it, right? But for Arjuna, no. But yoga is the same for both of you, both you and Arjuna.
Yeah.
And the path of yoga is the same for both of you, you and Arjuna. Yes? He's a warrior, you're a monk. Okay, fine. So, what's the difference? You're not a monk, he's not a warrior.
Right.
Right? Yeah, that's
Well, I
it.
guess what I meant that this was a new beginning for me. So if all new
You think so? Do you really think so? How could you have this natural inclination in this short of a period of time?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand.
So, so the correct understanding of this makes life clear and enables you to live in total harmony and bliss. In other words, when we talk about freedom or happiness, well, those are innate. They're not acquired. They're innate. So in this way, the requirement, if we're to actually find it, the requirement is to find it inside. And the only way to find it inside is to let go of all of the stuff that's disturbing. And that was never out there. That was always in the psyche. So if one is going to work with the psyche, why add complexity? Why keep adding additional complexity? Why keep becoming this and that? Because that's all psychological stuff. Right? So, and here, finding the capacity to live in accordance with whatever it is, with the nature, whatever it is, warrior or anything. But then engage in it in a certain way, and that's where we are in this, which is detached but vibrant. Fully engaged but detached from the results, not desirous of something for me. Devoted. Okay. One more. Oh, we're good actually. Number 50 and 51. Now, continuing in the same vein, where Krishna says, "Learn from me in brief, O Arjuna, how he who has attained perfection reaches Brahman, that supreme state of knowledge. Endowed with a pure intellect, controlling the self by firmness, relinquishing sound and other objects, and abandoning attraction and hatred." So commentary from Swami on these. What does the one who wants to realize God abandon? Not any particular occupation or form of life. So the one who wants to attain to the knowing of God, you could say it like that. There was a point at which, and I shared this the other day, and this will come to all of us in one way or another, because of the pointless nature of a separate life. Always living separate from each other, there's no fulfillment in it. And if we find union with one and not the rest, then we'll continue to be motivated to switch alliances. And so finally we discover that only unity will do. Only when there's no enemy or possibility of an enemy here, and there's no possibility of an other, can satisfaction occur. And can one actually live in their own swarupa, their own highest nature, love. And so what I've shared is the words that came, all I want is to know you and serve you. Now, I had heard that God was not apart from me, but from the perspective of conscious mind, it still is. In coming to the path. All I want is to know you and to serve you. So we could say like this, to know God, then in the fullness of that would mean to know you fully. And the only way to know someone fully is to have union with them. That's what compassion is. Compassion is shared experience and shared bhava, shared inner attitude. Yeah. So you see, loving another, and Jules, you have this experience. Loving another requires us to come into union with the other. Is it so? Yeah. And so you could also say knowing another requires union if you're to know them completely. You have to be inside them, right? Yeah. So in this way we can say that knowing God and union with God are really the same. Because to know ultimately also means to understand. And the only way to understand is have the lived experience, so it keeps coming back to union. To know finally leads us to the need to understand. The need to understand is the need for union. And so we could say realize God, which you could hear as knowing God, but it also means union. What does the one who wants to realize God abandon? What do they give up?
Serves the self and believing they're the individual.
Yeah, so he starts by saying, well, not any particular occupation or form of life. And then he says, there's no purpose in jumping from the frying pan into the fire. When someone approached Ramana Maharshi for permission to take sannyas, the latter significantly remarked, so long you have identified yourself with the householder's life and status, and now you wish to identify yourself with the Swami's life and status, what's the use? Remove all such identifications by self-realization. So you wouldn't go from one occupation or one mode of life to another if you're to realize God, if that's your goal. It's pointless. You wouldn't go from one wife to another, right?
You're asking is
You wouldn't go from one child to another.
your occupation is just like a garment.
Yeah.
It's not the real.
Yeah, it's fine. So, and I pray that's beneficial, by the way, getting that. It's fine. It's fine. Whatever it is, it's fine. You're not the garment. Oh. So you wouldn't switch from one to another if your goal is the divine life or life in unity with the divine principles, however we say. Indian history and legend contain countless illustrations of this truth. God realization does not depend upon learning or upon particular professions or accidents of birth, but solely upon self-discipline, which is elaborated in the 3 verses 51 to 53 coming. So only by controlling oneself, but not in a negative sense. Always ego will hear that in a certain way. So, yeah. Oh. So one should have an extremely pure intellect. Only that exceptionally pure intellect will be able to reflect the true glory of the self. The self, little self, must be controlled. We can effectively do that only by making the self obey the dictates of the divine within, and not by acceding to the little self's demands. It is the self that clamors for recognition. The will of the divine will naturally and inevitably asserts itself. So the little self is what's wanting to get something or to be recognized. But the divine self has no such interest. So when you get to that intuitive place or take guidance from the intuitive, you see it has no interest in being glorified and being revered and getting something. It already has. It already is. So the latter, that is, the divine will, requires no special effort or endeavor. The former, to be recognized as something. The former involves self-aggrandizement. You have to get something. With love of those who promote it, you have to get into the right group. And hatred of those that thwart it, you have to make sure to dislike the proper people or things. These are factors to be abandoned. How does one's birth or the expression of God-given innate talent hamper this self-discipline? You know, all of the worldly factors now, we're in this crazy time, and Swami checks the news every day. It's part of the requirement of Swami's duty is to stay in touch. Of course, not to gain something, but we have to be aware in order to help support the seeing of it in a beneficial way. Yeah. And so it's out there, it's become more and more polarized. We see that. And we have to, and society is trying to get us to pick a side, which means we love one and hate another. But we wish to be able to navigate in the center of this. So one way or another, that philosophy has to be rejected, right? So it's okay if you find yourself on one side or the other. It's okay. What you have to do is reject it. And you can be seen by either. It's okay. It's not how you're recognized. It's the inner state that you construct and that you relate to. So in other words, whatever it is, we come back to the same place, it's fine. In terms of the Dharma, it's fine. The requirement is not to get wrapped up in that, but to center in witness consciousness, to center in the intuitive, to center in the God nature, and to make all of our movement towards realization of the God nature, of the highest nature. It has to be. So, and if that's wanting to be the movement, then what we're doing with the hands, we have to do something. So whatever comes naturally is fine. Yes. Okay. We'll close for the morning. Any other discussion on this area?
I remember this shloka. It's better to die in your own dharma than follow someone else's dharma.
Yeah. And we were talking about that the other evening, about the attitude of the pilgrim, which is engaged, but willing to die at any moment. Not wanting to, but willing to. It's true. Okay. Anything else? Kartikeya?
I think, yeah, it's crazy times.
Okay. Thank you, Kartikeya.
Well, I did see a condensed video the other day. It was always clips of always people protesting in different countries, and that's great. It was unbelievable how many people there are doing that. But then we know for the lockdown, it's
No, it requires hating something.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fantastic. To
It
see.
requires hating something. Peace Pilgrim used to say, "You'll never find me at a protest. You'll find me instead embodying and exemplifying love."
What do you think about Martin Luther King?
Martin Luther King is a sage. So look at his words and actions carefully. You'll see him playing a role that's in accordance with the nature, with his nature. So he did what his father did. Yes?
Yeah, they're both reverends.
Yeah, both preachers. So he came naturally into it. He's centered. And so on the outside, he served in the role with wisdom as the guide, and love for all and acceptance of all. It's interesting, you see such direct parallels between him and Gandhi, and it wasn't because they studied each other. Some historians will say that. It's not. It's because they were placed in a very similar role, as it were, by nature, and they were both guided by the same wisdom, the same, and so you see how that wisdom will act. It could be against a particular situation, as in, this should not be, but it's not against a particular person.
Yeah.
It's not against a particular entity. And even the method of action that's guided from it is non-violent. Yeah. Okay. So Martin Luther King is, all those who have been with him have been in the company of a saint. So, okay, let's close with final prayers and arati. Page 174. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyama Mritat Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandim Pushti Vardhanam Orvai Rukameva Bandhanan Mritor Mukshiyama Mritat Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Shantu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyanto Makashit Dukhabhagavan Asatoma Saktamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityormama Mritangamaya Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. O adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and to control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with divine virtues. Let us behold Thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve Thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember Thee. Let us ever sing Thy glories. Let Thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in Thee forever and ever. Humble our Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki. And for all of the saints and sages of all the traditions.